Hey everyone, welcome again to a Friday edition of Leadership Live, Elevate.Strategy, fireside chat with some of the leading business leaders globally. And today, yet again, week after week, I've got really good guests coming on, very seasoned senior business people. And more importantly, it's really around kind of, listening to their stories and kind of understanding. Let me just see here. There's a bit of an audio issue. There we go. Hold on a second. So today, we've got a very special guest near and dear to my heart because I started my career with him. And I'll introduce him in a second. But over the past 20 years, he's had an illustrious career. But listening to the stories behind how he got to where he is today, I'm sure a lot of us can relate to a lot of the decisions that he had to make and some of the struggles or sort of the successes he's had to get to where he is today. So, but just a quick update on Elevate. Thank you so much, everybody, for supporting this broadcast. Thank you for the post-production questions and reach outs to some of my guests. In particular, last week we had Norm Lem coming from Toronto, and he told me afterwards that there was a lot of engagement from the audience. So thank you so much. If you are watching live right now on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, please drop a note. Tell us where you're from. I'd love to sort of see from you, hear you, and any feedback you have for me about these broadcasts. I'm wide open for them. I wanted to give a very quick plug to a company called Shift Co, and that's SHIFT /CO. And I came across them just about a couple of weeks ago, and they are a sort of an entrepreneurial support organization that focuses on what they call conscious-minded leaders. And what that means are these are folks that typically kind of come running their own business, but they're intending to do good for the world, but also at the same time make money. So it's called Shift /Co, and they're an awesome resource place if you're starting a business, or even if you just want to find out about what some of the thought leaders in the industry thinks about different aspects of entrepreneurship. So head on over to their site if you have a chance. But without further ado, it's not about me at all. It's about my guest today, and I wanted to introduce to you Michael Marchand. And Michael is he's a VP of Revenue Operations at WP Engine. So I'm just going to read his bio, and I'll introduce him to front stage here. WP Engine is a leading WordPress digital experience platform with over 170,000 customers globally. He supports revenue growth with the goal of scaling the company to its aspiration of 1 million customers. He leads marketing, sales strategy, customer success, and technical support operations, among other things. Michael was a senior director at Dell in the chief customer office, where he led strategy and planning, designing programs to increase customer loyalty and value. Prior to Dell, he was a VP for the Visiting Nurse Service of New York, a $1.9 billion healthcare organization that serves 40,000 patients daily. So that's quite an awesome feat there. And Michael's history and myself is, prior to that, he had roles, but the major one that really impacted me was when he was at Deloitte Consulting with myself, which is where I began my career. And Michael was one of my first mentors. I don't think he'll admit that, or I don't think he'll remember that, but he really sort of took the opportunity and the time to kind of take people under his wing and kind of help them develop some skills, some capabilities that, as a newbie, we had none, right? So he's very near and dear to my heart, and I'm glad to have him on the show today. So without further ado, here's Michael. Good to see you, buddy.
Good seeing you, Simeon. It's always great to talk to you.
Yeah, and it's we spoke last year. I remember once on the phone, but before that, I don't think I had any exchange with you for for about 15 years. And maybe I dropped you a note here and there, and but it was really great to see your trajectory. And if people can head on to their LinkedIn and take a look at Michael's profile, you'll see what I'm talking about. But Michael, everything I said about you at the intro is true. I know you don't like people to see your face. You said that, but people need to see your story. So that's why you're here today. So for people who don't know WP Engine and don't know about your role, maybe you can quickly describe what it is that you do there. That would be very helpful.
Yeah. So first of all, WP Engine is a Silver Lake company. It's been growing. It's about 10 years old. It was founded in Austin, which is where I live. As the business is growing, maturing, we are growing at a pretty accelerated growth pace, especially after COVID. And they brought me in to found a function called revenue operations, which is kind of a new thing in SaaS and other businesses that are subscription oriented, but trying to really lace together the different points that customers go through their journey, build the strategy, the insights, the operational rigor that allows us to not only have great experiences when you buy something, but also when you get handed over to different functional areas. Because there's lots of frustrations for people who are like, well, your salesperson told me this, now you're telling me something different in billing, and or it's automated and your processing tools don't quite agree with each other. And so I work, I've got a beautiful team of about 30 people, and they make me look good every day, which is hard to do with me, but they do. And we work on strategic matters for our investors, our C-suite, in particular our chief operating officer, who I report to, and really are trying to not only deliver on today's number and today's experience for our customers, but also get to that aspiration I brought to. And it's a fun role because it's definitely different than anything else I've done in my career, because I have to worry about this month's revenue, this month's churn, but also spend time imagining and then activating ways that we're going to get to that million customer mark and a fairly large, even larger revenue number.
Right.
The last piece is, like every other place I go to, my joke is I'm building an organization that is good enough so whoever succeeds me doesn't have to blow it up and start over. That is the goal. Because we all leave. It happens whether you want to or not, or different things happen in your career. I found in my career, the more I focus on I'm building for somebody else to take over at some point,
yeah,
it has a very different mindset,
right,
than hey, I'm going to do a good job today.
Yeah, for the here and now kind of a thing. Yeah.
Yep.
I've always known you to be someone who is quick on your feet, a very sharp mind, and your mind travels faster than your words sometimes. So the words kind of come out differently, but then when you clarify your ideas, they're brilliant. They're really great. What is one of the challenges that you face when you're trying to get an aspirational goal of 1 million? Because before our broadcast, you were telling me that that's a very significant challenge. And what is the biggest kind of obstacle to you kind of going forward, towards success?
So it's a great question. First, just for folks who are watching, my mind works much faster than my hands or my mouth. I've had to actually work on that, because especially as I get more senior. I had a brilliant marketer who also was named Michael in my healthcare days. And I sat next to him in a meeting and said, you just say things so nicely. How do you do it? And he said, well, just look at my notepad. And I looked down and I saw that he was rewriting what he was going to say or ask over and over again to get it correct.
Okay.
The other piece that it taught me was like, you don't always have to be the first to speak.
Right.
It's much more important when having the right insights, great, or thought, but it's also the timing of it. So that's something else I've had to work into my career where
Right.
I'm non-linear, so I don't see that. Getting to your question, I think there are three big buckets of challenges. One challenge is there's lots of customers. Like WordPress is 41% of the internet's written in now. So there is more customers than a million, many, many more.
Right.
So who are you really trying to go after and why is one of our challenges. And it's the first time we've had to do that as an organization. Really, they've done it in other ways in terms of how they build their products, but really thinking about the overall experience, there are differences.
Right. Sure.
Second is what are the capabilities we need, right? What got this company to where it is now, I have a lot of respect for what they've done, is not necessarily going to get you to where you need to go.
Yeah.
And that means we have to change how we develop our people, how to develop our processes and systems, how we develop the way we think about the business. The third big challenge, I think, is it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
We don't normally do contracts with customers like other kind of SaaS companies do. People can do annual with us. We encourage it. We give you a discount. We love it because it reduces our churn, but
Right.
we do a lot of month to month, which means we earn our keep every single day. Every single day. And so you always have to be thinking about, like, by the time you get to that, as good as we are, and like our retention rates are sky high because we are a better, not cheaper company.
Right.
There's still going to be customers that leave us. Hopefully we'll bring them back at some point. So getting to 1 million isn't just like, hey, I acquired 1 million customers. It's I'm truly servicing 1 million people in their digital efforts in a way that is impactful. Right. It's like, you don't get to charge what we get to charge. Right. I always tell people, like, they're like, oh, that's cool, like, you compete with GoDaddy. And I'm like, no, like, GoDaddy is something different. They're a great firm, no question.
Yeah.
We are two different things in terms of what we're trying to achieve as a business.
Right.
And for people who are really worried about security, reliability, compliance, some of the more complex use cases like e-commerce, headless is another term that's thrown out a lot. We want to get that million, right? That's the million we're trying to go after. But those folks, rightly so, have unique demands, and we have to figure out how to serve them in a more and more scalable and effective way.
Right.
Does that help you, Simeon?
Yeah, absolutely. I often wonder for senior leadership, what are the things that really bother you about sort of, kind of when something happens, right? So, and I'm interested in anyone who's watching, as far as, if you're a leader, what kind of things bother you when things aren't going well, right? So for some people, it's when your loyal customers have left, right? For some people, it's like, well, a competitor has kind of come up or birthed a new product, and it's like, shoot, I got to do something about that now. Like, what's one or two things that really, really get under your skin?
So things that are knowable and controllable, right? So like, we had an outage, unfortunately, as did a lot of the internet with Cloudflare.
Right.
We're not happy about it, nor is Cloudflare, and great partner. They're doing all the right things. But that's not necessarily completely in our control.
Right.
There are other things that are knowable and controllable, that figuring out how to pay attention to those things and making sure you really dissect them down to the critical few is one of the things that I get irritated for myself on. I like to understand too much sometimes. And like, a lot of times businesses, like a lot of our businesses are like most businesses, there's 12 to 13 metrics. If you're green on those, you're going to be mostly okay. And so it's very easy as a senior leader to get distracted by all other things or subsets of those things. And you can easily not see something that is apparent, right? In terms of things. The second, so that knowable and controllable is one. The second is where I get irritated, and just, did I give enough context to set the team up for success. What I've seen in my career is when you knew me at Deloitte, it was about me being brilliant. I was a so-so leader, had a lot of work to do, but I was a really incredible problem solver. As I've gotten more senior, that's like a table stake. Like you're supposed to be super smart, incredibly talented.
Right.
I've got a ton of peers at WP Engine that are like that. What separates, I think, is your ability to work with others, whether they're underneath you or peers or above you or beside you, whatever words you want to pick.
Yeah.
And giving them the context and the frame to help them figure out the solution. Right. That's how you scale as an executive. Where I've seen myself get annoyed is something goes wrong and it's simply because I did not give them enough context or I didn't set up the circumstances for them to succeed. Right. Those are the things that annoy me. Like, it's the should have knowns, or I could, I was joking with my boss about something and I was like, he's like, this is a really good slide. I'm like, well, I hope so at this point in my career. but I was super annoyed when it was on the slide because like I know better and I missed it because I just allowed myself to get distracted and not focus on those top 10, 15 things. But those are the things that drive me a little crazy. Like the rules haven't changed since we've worked together, Simeon. You can make as many mistakes as you like, as long as it's the first time mistake. If it happens the third time, we'll have a real conversation around it. I don't like surprises. I tell my teams that all the time. I love people bringing me solutions, not just problems. I want you to fail. Failure is a good thing. Like it's hard. It's hard. It's hard to do it, but you have to do it. That's how you grow. The other piece that I really try to drive into myself is self-improvement, self-reflection. The higher you go, the less you get. My chief operating officer was doing my review after 6 months, and he ended the conversation with, could you spend time, come back with top 3 bullets for me, development, strengths? Okay. He's like, no, I need it. Like, I'm noticing that I'm not getting that, and I need you to do that for me. And that's a trust thing. But it was super genuine. Impactful to see someone who, 95% of the time is doing it. Yeah, he has to do it right. Or we won't run. So
and that's something that I see in a lot of my clients, my executive clients, who have either misunderstood the metric that's really important for their success, or they have not been told. They've not been coached to say, listen, you need to have a career goal. You need to have some sort of personal goal almost before your business goal, because that's kind of what drives you in the morning, right? To say, I care about certain things, and therefore in the context of business, I also care about those same things, right? And to dichotomize them is when sort of like the hairs starting to be split, where it's not really you to look at the bottom line per se. You're responsible for that, but it's more you about what is the process behind that, right? What is the people behind that, and trying to foster that. Gotcha. That's very insightful. And you've always been very introspective and really challenge other people to do that as well. Even though before introspection was really known with that, what do you know about that when you first come out, right? I knew nothing about introspection. I just needed to learn Excel, right? And the macros and all those things.
Yeah. And it's hard because as you get higher, like, Deloitte, as you remember, like they had like the triangle, and then the triangle would open up back up. And like the whole point of the triangle was like, you start off as a generalist, then you have to specialize because that's how you get sold as a manager and a senior manager. But then you get back up to the next level, partner, whatever, or senior manager, and like you need to be broad again. And like that crucible's hard. And you're like, I was coaching one of my staff the other day, and I'm like, she was really struggling because she's exceptionally technically skilled, like, and very good with customers and very good with her stakeholders. And she's a manager now. And I'm like, she's like, I just need to know it all. And I'm like, no, you don't.
No, you don't. Yeah.
What you need to be able to do is figure out what the questions are to test the other person to figure out if they know what they're doing. Which is actually it's a different skill, and one that I see too often people not learn fast enough. And it took me a number of cycles to get myself to a place where I was like, I don't actually need to know all the answers. I just need to know I just have to make sure I have good questions.
Right. Yeah, that's more than half the battle for sure. So Michael, if I switch gears a little bit to the journey, right? So
Yeah.
the series Leadership Live, Firechat, Unplugged with Leaders is all about people's personal journeys to get to where they are today. So it's all great fun to know, what you do and your responsibilities, but can you give us a little context around how did you get to the point here? And I ask people to start as far back as you like, right? As far as the first decisions you had to make, who are some of your influencers? Why did you do certain things? Can you start kind of walking us through that? Where did it begin and kind of where you are today?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to start with one of my very first jobs when I was a kid. So I wound up being a camp counselor at a camp called Hackano in my hometown. Cool camp. It was done by the YMCA, and the kids could move place to place by themselves. So it was a pretty free society. It was really my first responsibility job where the welfare of these kids was on me. And you just learned a lot of cool things by working with kids in terms of patience, in terms of if you want them to do something, you have to figure out what's in it for them. As a senior executive,
just like adults.
It's very, I sometimes joke that in my career that I learned more about how to handle senior executives and egos with kids than I did anywhere else.
Yep.
But it was also the leaders there created gravity. Like people want to work there. Like people come back. Like I don't know, an enormous number of people who just spent high school and most of college working over summers. And they came back because the leaders created this environment that was just so cool. I mean, we still have a Facebook page going with photos and questions and whatever. Wow. It's pretty neat. Okay. And it was I won, I decided one year that I wanted to be counselor of the year. And was a big honor, something I wanted to attain. I was fortunate to make it. And they had 2 to 3 a year, and I won for dedication. Because as you hear in my career, I put my whole self into my jobs.
Yes.
And I think that people who don't lie to themselves too much or are not in their flow. So I did that and so moving kind of through my career, I then sold mortgages for a little bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I really hated it. I did it for 6 weeks. It sucked. It was not enjoyable.
I can't imagine you doing that, Mike.
It was just it was 1993. The economy was not awesome, and so and I had a degree in history at the time. So I didn't have, without talking about lack of skills, I had no skills. I was very fortunate that I could get out of that job because it was not something, people were really nice, nothing bad about the people. And I wound up getting to the American Management Association originally, and I wound up getting to work on one of the coolest jobs I had, which is it's a $30 million division of a bigger organization. And basically the folks that did analysis had left, and they just kept giving me stuff. So I started to analyze the business. In those days, you get a huge raft of paper and you dig it all out and you put it into Lotus Notes or Lotus 123. And I just learned how to start doing analysis and understanding how businesses kind of worked.
Right.
As time went on, they gave me other opportunities to manage or kind of coordinate with our offsite fulfillment centers, where I'm trying to figure out how to help 50-year-olds change, which was I was very fortunate. One of the shift managers took pity on me. She's like, you have really good ideas, but no one understands what you're saying, dude.
Yeah, no one gets it. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. So Vanessa was really helpful in helping me to translate it. And it was one of those moments where you have gratitude. You have somebody who should have probably gone to college, didn't have that opportunity, but was really empowering in the sense of having the gumption to come up to me and say, hey, let me help. Yeah. It was a humbling moment because I thought I was smart, right? We all think we're smart. And it was just cool to see it because we really drove some neat changes. And then the back end of that experience, they had me part of the team that was trying to build electronic products. So either, just trying to use in those days it was fax, then the beginning of the internet and the like, and lots of failures. Like incredible. Like I joke in my bio that I learned I wasn't I was not Jeff Bezos. Because we started selling books online around the same time he started his business.
Okay.
And we did. I did just about everything you can imagine wrong and how to run an e-commerce business. I mean, I started a server. We barely collected any cash. It just, it was amazing. That led me to go to business school at UT Austin.
Yeah.
I went for value because the ROI was the best of a top 20 school in the country. Did that. Was originally going to be an investment banker. When I interviewed with the investment banking crowd, I just did not fit.
Right.
Fit is so, like, if your audience and your clients understand one thing, you spend more time at work doing anything. You spend more time working than anything else. It's just the reality of life, especially for the types of roles I think your client base goes after. If you don't fit, don't do it. Like, it really is that simple, especially as you get older in your career. And I just didn't fit. Like, I didn't like anyone. It was just not the environment for me. And all of my friends were like, you should be a consultant. And I was like, well, I'm 25 years old. What the hell do I know?
Right.
And they kept talking to me about it. And I was fortunate enough to interview at a bunch of firms, get a few offers, wound up summer interning at Deloitte. Had some amazing mentors there and spent the next almost 9 years of my life in the Deloitte world. Where Deloitte is, I think, probably the most powerful experience in many ways for me in my career.
Can I just back up a little bit, Michael, to ask you this? And again, anyone watching, how important is fit to you, right? How important is fit in your career? How have you found maybe yourself today where you are because of the result of poor fit? But Michael, why did you feel that you weren't a fit for iBanking? What was it about that you felt didn't quite sit well?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple big things for me. One is, it took me a long time to articulate this. I couldn't articulate it then. I need a mission that's more than making money.
Okay.
And so bankers do great things. I have friends who are bankers, but at the end of the day, they are probably like that discipline is probably one of the most focused on the return on investment, all the financial metrics. So that's one. So that's just who I am versus what they are type of moment. Two was there was a type of arrogance that just doesn't fit with my personality very well. You could describe it as jock, you could athlete jock kind of mentality, even though I was an athlete at one point in my life. I think the other piece was just there was an internal competitiveness that you could feel permeating the organization,
right?
Where to get ahead, you had to beat other people. That was how I felt it at the time. It may or may not have been true, but that was how I experienced it.
Right.
And like part of the reason I picked Texas to go to business school was the fit. It's known and continues to be known for super talented, ambitious people who are nice. And nice is good. So that's kind of why I just didn't see the fit there. And then also not to belittle banking, the investment banking world, but I quickly came to the realization that the only things you can do is tell someone to buy a company, sell a company, issue stock, issue debt,
restructure.
That's it. And then it's as much as it's an analytical business, it's also a relationship business.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It just wasn't what I wanted. Like
Gotcha.
Like, or at least the flavors of it I looked at, I didn't think were what I wanted. I did fake investment banking quite a bit at Deloitte, as you know. I'm good at it.
So Michael, I'm going to probe just one more step deeper into that.
Yeah.
So what was it about growing up that instilled those qualities in you about what was important to you, right? So non-transactional, competitiveness in the sense of hard-nosed, being mean. Was there sort of a point in time where you kind of felt like in developing yourself as a person, you came to that point? Like, what was your influence for that?
Wow, that's hard. It's like therapy. Um,
And it's okay if you don't want to, if you don't want to
no,
answer.
no, no. I'd say there's two things. One is we moved around a lot, like, or relatively a lot when I was a kid. So like,
Okay.
I was born in New York City. I moved to Connecticut from like ages 7 to 11. Then we moved to Miami for a few years. Then we moved back to the same town. And so like I always felt like a little bit of an outsider,
Mm-hmm.
on top of the fact that I'm Jewish, and depending where I lived,
Okay.
acceptance of that varied at that time in the world in the U.S. Um, I think it was, the like, um, I've always found that I've been like, I'm super competitive, as you know,
Mm-hmm.
but but my competitiveness at one point, especially when I was less confident, was with other people, and then I think what got refined, especially working at Mahakano, was that the team wins, or
Mm-hmm.
like experience of my customer, which would be the kids and the parents, was good, and that started to shape a lot of the way I think about things.
Right.
And I think it also, because I moved around a lot, there was always this sense of going to college as a
Okay.
really cool milestone. And so
Mm-hmm.
like a big part of who I am, as you know, is like I'm futuristic. I love thinking about where the world's going. Not
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love to learn. I'm a history buff, so I love learning where the. I always tell people, like, you better learn from other people's mistakes, because you don't have time to make them all yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a great quote from somebody I don't remember, but I think that probably was the big thing for me. I wouldn't say I was able to articulate what I just said to you until I was probably in my 40s.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. So moving on with the Deloitte times. Now you're in consulting. Tell me about that time now. That 9 years of formative life.
So Deloitte was a great place for me in many ways. Smart, personal people, very difficult, as you know, challenging assignments. I was fortunate enough. Also, a lot of my assignments were like, it's the first time we've ever done this.
Right.
Uh, and
Right.
like I built a reputation, especially on kind of the strategy part of the world, of, oh, you sold something you really don't understand you sold. Well, Michael will figure it out. And so
Yeah.
the intellectual challenge, the rigor, the idea that someone's paying you hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to solve a problem that they feel like they can't solve on their own,
Mm-hmm.
you know, was scary and inspiring at the same time. I was also pretty stubborn, because Deloitte at that time wasn't as big a strategy firm in the US as it is
Right.
today.
Right.
I wound up being in Texas, which was supposed to be a strategy office, but only really did energy. And I
Right.
didn't want to. I didn't. I'm a little bit of a nonconformist, so like I like to swim upstream a lot in my career, and so of course I wanted to do something else. So I wound up doing telecom, media, and tech.
Yep.
Spent 4 years in Austin and Dallas, and then after 9/11, the firm asked me to move up
Right.
to New York. And so like what Deloitte taught me was, I learned a ton all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And the best thing was, everyone was superstars. Like, in general. But there were better superstars than others. And like,
Yeah.
but you were around people who were highly motivated, really
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do a great job, and they were all really interesting, cool people, as were the clients. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
believe you hire consultants that fit you if you do a good
Mm-hmm.
job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so like I got to work on really cool stuff. On top of that, I was a crappy manager my first year, which I don't think you worked with me at that point. Like, it was bad. Like, I did some really stupid things. And also we can talk about those in a second. But I really grew as a leader,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
grew as a mentor, coach, counselor.
Yeah.
I learned how to sell, which was something that actually you have to learn as an executive. You have
Yeah.
to be able to sell.
Right.
Does not matter if you're a salesperson. There's a difference between carrying a quota. You still have to learn how to sell your ideas.
Right. Yeah.
And then on a personal side of it, quite frankly, like, I got to drink wine, eat food, see places,
Yep.
experience things that I would have never ever experienced in
Right.
any other profession. So it was great. It was probably, I cried when I left Deloitte. So I don't know if you know this, but I got engaged and quit the firm basically at the same time. And yeah, and part of it was a hard conversation because my wife and I, or my girlfriend at the time, and I had to have a really, like, because you're sitting there and, I was, I think, even with struggles and things that didn't go right, and I had a bad year and whatnot, I was destined to be a partner. Like that's what the firm wanted from me. I, and that's a very interesting life, extremely lucrative if you do it well. But you're 6.5 days a week. You're on a plane a lot. I had one partner tell me, like, you're either going to make a great partner or a great husband. If you try and do both, you're not going to make it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because it's a commitment.
Yeah.
Like, to be a partner and to be at that level. Like,
yeah.
And it was a real, and so my wife and I talked about what we wanted. I said, I can make a lot more money continuing to do this, but you'll have less of my time. What do you want?
Right.
And she was very much, I'd rather have more time and a little less money.
Right.
And so, like, that was one of the reasons I left. And
what did you want?
I didn't know what I wanted. I wanted to be happy. To be honest, like, I don't think, I think I was burning out. I was not enjoying the pressure of having a quota. It was not, like, I love selling. It's really interesting. But when I got into a lot of moral debates around what I was selling and whether it was just good for me and the firm or was good for my client.
Right.
Because before, as you start your consulting career, it's all about solving the problems. I spent I actually refused a promotion at one point at Deloitte because I wanted to stay at the manager level. Well, we was going from manager to senior manager, and I was moving cities, and the economy wasn't great. And I'm like, I'm not that good a salesperson yet, and I'm about to go into a bad economy, and I'm going to get measured on this. So I actually spent extra time at the manager level. I think I'm one of the few people who was actively, I don't want to be promoted yet.
I think I remember you saying something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I enjoyed the manager level so much, and I felt that even at 30, that it would be. I wasn't self-confident enough to know that at 30 I still had really good ideas, and people wouldn't care how old I am. I definitely had that struggle in my career, where you have that confidence, like you're not worthy of what you're doing. So, but Deloitte was amazing. Still have great friends from it, great experiences. And it was so foundational for me as a leader, like so many lessons, so many good practices I picked up and learned from both my clients and from my peers. And so, but it led me to my next adventure. I was pretty burnt coming out of consulting.
Right.
And I think everyone was expecting when I was leaving, I was going to go to another high intensity startup environment. And be like, oh yeah, I'm going to go whatever it was at the time that was hot.
Solve problems.
And so I didn't do that. I went to work at a non-for-profit company in New York City that serves people in their homes, that has like a 1% operating margin. And I thought I'd do it for like a year or two because I felt like I wanted to do some, like, no matter what else happens in my career, I did some good. That was kind of like logic at the time. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. A little more chill. I'm starting a marriage, starting a family. And I wound up staying for 5 years. And the enormity of what I was allowed to do and the gratefulness I have to the management of that organization, because the bench wasn't, like, they had great clinical talent. The business side, wasn't as strong as usual in healthcare in the US.
This is the visiting nurse service, right?
New York, yeah. And so, like, it was great because, like, we didn't have product development. And so, like, they're like, okay, thank you. And they're like, go build it. And I'm like, oh, okay, with like 2 people. And you just go build it. I was really interested in doing a lot of things we're doing in COVID, whatever, 10, 12 years ago. So we did remote visiting, we did video-based businessing, we were playing secure, we were figuring out how to do fall prevention. There was just so many interesting things that can be done to help people who, quite frankly, don't have the level of support that I'm fortunate enough to have in my life because of my economic status.
Right.
It was hard. I had to change. The organization was 91% women.
Okay.
It was typically men were allowed to work in finance, IT, and like kind of my business, my strategy and innovation group.
Right.
Those are the places men could work. Like that was like literally had that conversation at times. And so like for folks that are who are female, I never say that I can fully understand your experience, but I definitely have an appreciation of it because I had 5 years where I'd walk into meetings, I'd be the only man in the room.
Right.
And, you managed around that. And it was really cool. I got experience working with our board. I was able to build a venture fund with them and try out like new things. It had to like grow into like being an executive sponsor of programs and like recognizing I wasn't going to be doing the project work. I was the person reviewing the program, which is a very interesting moment in your career. And
what was that switch like? So you went from high intensity corporate to now sort of more of a public sector kind of.
What I'd say is,
how was that like?
Here's the way I describe it. In some it's industry, not just public sector-esque. You had to like learn where to be patient and where not to be patient.
Okay.
And so like our decision making, partly because people's lives are on the line, I would say more so than nonprofit, what was more deliberate because of the fact of what we were dealing with in terms of and so you had to learn patience around how long things would take. On the flip side of it, there was a different intensity because of the fact that the majority of the workforce, especially the leadership team, was not here for a paycheck. We were all taking less. And it was about the mission. And the fact that and so there was what I'd say is even at WP Engine, like if I need something at 7:00 at night right now, I can get it. And when I worked at VNSNY, you wouldn't do that, right? The job ended around 5:30, get in around 8:30, and that was kind of the constraints. People didn't work on the weekends. People didn't work at night. And so you had to get used to that kind of view. You also had to deal with the fact that, and this is one of the harder things coming out of consulting, there were different levels of talent around you. And you couldn't just you couldn't just assume awesomeness. And you couldn't just always make it the best solution. You had to make it a solution that was practical and that could work. And you had to take the time. There were times where I had peers that, couldn't handle the challenge, and you had to step in and help them. And there were moments where you couldn't handle the challenge. And so it was one of those moments where it was very, very much like, how do you think differently given the fact that your context is so different? And it forced a lot of growth. The other thing that was fascinating about the company was we were measured, my boss and I, on how many leaders we were creating for the rest of the business. And it was one of the best business principles I've ever seen. Because we should be able to create another director out of the people on my team. They're all really smart, talented. Some of them would have worked in an investment bank or consulting firm. Some of them are clinicians that want to become more business oriented. And when you have a metric that says you got to create another leader, it's very different than some of the conversations you have even in corporate America.
That's amazing.
It's very brilliant. Our CEO was Carol Raphael. She's still alive. I don't know if you've ever been with a senior executive. You go in the room and I've been in the room with Michael Dell and some others that are big, heavy. Carol, equal gravitas, brilliance. She teaches at Harvard now, and she's an expert in healthcare. I'm just giving her strategic advice, and I know, I'm in year 2, and I know something.
Yeah.
But I'd always have a positive nervous pit in my stomach when I'd work with Carol directly.
Okay.
She just demanded a lot. Her expectations like she was the organization, and both the good and the ill were a reflection of her and her achievement in the organization. And she was the CEO for 23 years of the company, and led a marvelous take. Like when she first got there, the organization was getting close to failure, probably, at least the way I understood the story. And she had taken it all the way to being, for its space in healthcare, being like a Mayo. Like it was an incredible thing. And so being for its sector, it was an innovator, and that was really neat because Deloitte at that time was a fast follower.
Right.
And so it gave me some juice around innovation that I didn't necessarily get at Deloitte.
So, Michael, what was it about her gravitas that kind of said, you know what, this is the reason why she's such a great leader, and if I were to aspire to do anything like her, I'd want to become more like this? Like, what's one thing that you saw that was like, that really commanded your respect?
What I would say about her, I guess, two things. One, she was the best meeting summarizer I've ever met. So you'd have all these conversations in a meeting and whatnot. And at the end of the meeting, she would step back and say, here's what I learned today, or here's what we learned. Here are the decisions we've made. Here's what we're going to go do next. And it was super clear and super simple. I was just blown away by her ability to do that, because she also had like a number of other things she was doing outside of being just CEO of the company. She was on board. She was doing a lot of things. So that's number one. The second one was, although she was much more of a, I'd say, formal person, right? Every once in a while, she just would crack a joke that you weren't expecting, or make a remark that was just like, reminded you that she was a human being, and that she didn't care because she cared about, the hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers that needed support with Medicare and Medicaid or health plans and the like.
Right.
Those were the two that probably struck me the most.
Right. Gotcha.
And she's just really, really smart, and like you wanted her to approve of you. She built that thing. It was fun. I had a colleague at Dell one day, just give you a summary, like an example of what Carol used to do that I apparently picked up on was, Don, who was his director who worked for me at Dell, and he came up to me and said, Michael, I have a question. And I said, oh, cool. What's up, Don? And he's like, I just came out of a meeting and we're running behind on our project, and the team is trying to figure out how to do it because they don't want you to feel, they don't want to disappoint you. How did you do that? How did you make them feel that they wanted to solve the problem so you won't feel disappointed?
Okay.
Because I'm not a yeller. I don't scream at people, as you know, right? If something goes wrong, I blame myself, as I've probably said multiple times in this conversation. And what I learned was, because I had a value prop to my people that said, I'm going to help you uplift, I'm going to give you opportunity, I'm going to make you better.
Right.
It created a circuit. I didn't realize this until I learned it from Carol a little bit more. I learned in consulting some too. That ability then for them to give a shit, for them to think about the idea of having to explain to me why we're late, and me asking questions and not yelling at them, but asking what I can do to help them.
Right.
That ability to get to that place as a leader, where people are just like naturally desiring, I don't think approval is the right word, but like they don't want to disappoint. They want the thank you, the miswritten thank you emails that I send out late at night because I'm excited that someone delivered something.
Yeah, and you do that. Yeah, Michael, I remember you do that, and I think in some sense, and for listeners, what's one aspect of a great leader that you've seen that you want to aspire more to, right? So a great aspect of a leader, but you used to do that, and I think that was kind of your way of showing that you were human too, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, no, the other piece that it was interesting when I got hired at my current company, and I asked my leader, I said, well, I assume it wasn't, I assumed out everyone was a fan, because usually in hiring an executive, it's not everyone says yes.
Right.
I was fortunate enough that in this particular case I was wrong and it was all yeses. And I said, okay, if they're all yeses, like, what did I do?
Right.
As many of you guys know, like, as you search for a job or you're trying to do a change, you're going to have like 100, 200 conversations at my level to get to somewhere.
Right.
And my director of sales ops said, you're the only candidate after she did like the first round. You were the only candidate who wrote me back and actually asked for more time and actually made it happen. And she said, it was so authentic that you just wanted to understand and listen to me. And it's become like a central part of who I am as a leader and executive. I think we've over rotated to sound bites and making it all crisp and clear. Like, yes, it's hard in a 100,000 person company. Totally granted. But I think the fact that I try to be authentic. I don't try to say it so corporate speak wise or act in a way that isn't authentic. Like this morning, one of our staff in London, WP Engine's awesome. They try their best to develop people. It's for a smaller company. They help fund her master's, and we just promoted her, and she just finished her master's, and she's like, I've got all this free time now. And so, especially on the weekends, and I'm like, awesome, you have more time to work with stuff.
That's right. Yeah, no, you don't. Yeah. And you shouldn't have told us that.
Yeah, and so I and I was on the phone with a bunch of other people, and then she just started to razz me back, right, about some of the other random things that happened in my life. And I think that those moments are important. I think as much as people want to see that you can do the perfect polished, moment as a leader or as an executive, I think it's equally important in the right settings to be able to be authentic, to show vulnerability, to show how to solve the problem. Another easy example right now is my team really would like to have a quarter by quarter roadmap of where we're going.
Sure.
I literally went to my leaders this week and I told them I failed. I just could not get. I'm pretty good at planning and doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I just can't squeeze out the hours right now to do it well.
Right.
And so I literally went to them. I said, I need help. And I think sometimes we don't. Sometimes I think the old school leader would have never done that. You wouldn't show oh, I got it under control, or I'll come up with something that I think of in 5 minutes and it's going to be good enough and everyone will just follow it.
Right.
And I think that the world's changing where, leaders are about setting the context, setting the environment for success. Also asking, I think it's human to ask for help.
Yeah.
And I think that I think it's something that I've pushed more and more in my interviews, especially as when I hire leaders, trying to not only check the boxes on the basics around problem solving, relationship skills, blah, 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 but are you able to get a group of people to want to work with you, to want to succeed? So when you come in and you say, I always love the Apollo 13 image of they got to make the air purifier, the square, right, the round. Yeah, I love that. I play that all the time for people because I think it's just such a fascinating moment in the world. And right, but business is a lot like that, right? We get that a lot. What's amazing is, yes, there was a little bit of argument at the beginning about, oh my God, we can't do this, and then everyone just got to the task. Right. Because the mission and the leadership around them drove them to that. It would have been, I don't think without the leadership that was happening on, in Houston at that moment, we would have had that crew get back and be safe. And I think setting that up and getting to a place, especially right now with COVID, it's hard to build that relationship. You got to do it. And you got to you really, what I would tell your folks, think about the leaders, the circumstances you've been in, right? it's all absolutely, metrics are important. You got to show results, but I also always fascinated by how people get things done
Mm-hmm.
and the way they express it.
Right. And how they make people feel in the process of getting things done, right? It's the part of your job as a leader is to instill confidence, not only that your team have competency to do it, but also the fact that they can actually thrive and actually, learn to enjoy what they're doing, even if they don't like the process itself. But just being in an environment where it is encouraging, it is one that's tough. Maybe there's a lot of failure, but you're setting an example for them to say, you know what, even in the midst of this, we can enjoy each other. We can
Well,
really
and
enjoy
also,
each other. We can enjoy the situation, and in this day and age, that's so important, because people leave, or they're laid off, and people say that people join companies for company, but they leave because of leaders. And I think part of that is because you've just lost a sense of community, right? There's no humanity involved there, right?
it's funny. We decided to create a RevOps brand on my team. We made it a contest.
Okay.
And so like everyone could make their own. I'm a horrible artist, as you know. And so it was super cool to like see people create stuff, like to create a logo for a
Yeah.
team, and like,
Yeah.
the different ideas that people had. And if I literally did it on a whim, like it's turning into something that's important. People not only on my team, but in the organization are like, oh, can I see your logo? I'm curious to see what it looks like. That's kind of neat.
Right.
And I think there's a little bit of that. My wife has a rule that if I come home from work and more than 3 days a week I come home frustrated, I'm in the wrong job.
Okay.
And I think she said that to me many times in my career.
Wow. Okay.
And because they're hard times, right? Not every day is sunshine. Like I always tell people, like if you're trying to come to work to be happy or to be loved, you're probably going to the wrong place.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there should be a spirit. There should be an esprit de corps. There should be some fun. There should be friendliness.
Yeah.
There should be the, and it took me a lot. Like one of the downsides of my career was, and I'm sure you saw this in some of my things at Deloitte. I can go past it. I can see the flaw in anything. I'm really good at it,
Mm-hmm.
and it grew some pessimism in me,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a block. It was a blocker. It's certainly a blocker for part of my time at Dell. And I was very fortunate. One of the senior executives, Bobby Dangerfield, sent me an article one day, and she said, "I want you to read this article." And it was about growth mindset and optimism.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what I took away from it was, one, complaining doesn't do much good in the world.
Right.
We all like to complain, and we all have things we can complain about. And then the other thing that I really learned from it was no one hires negative.
Right.
Like if you're going, like I had a candidate come through and should have hired her, but she spent most of her time telling me about the challenges of her current employer and the challenges of layoffs and all these other things. And I'm like,
No.
my team said no. Because my team is sort of like, if you're spending all this energy complaining about your current circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
that's not what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I want somebody who's coming in and is excited and is motivated and is like, I just interviewed a brilliant woman this week, and I said, "Why do you want to come work at WP Engine?" And she said, "The fact that I dreamt one of my dreams in life is to work at a tech company.
Okay.
The fact that the company decided to, at its scale and its size, to invest in having a true like diversity and inclusion effort wasn't like, that's not just a mandate to get to some quotas, but really trying to embrace diversity in many different forms."
Right.
Her answer like was awesome.
Yeah.
And it encapsulated, like, I was like, cool, I'm going to hire somebody, and if I do a good job, she's going to be here for a long time.
Right.
Which is what most people want. Most people do not want to hire people for a year. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and so it took me a while to realize that, and I kind of have like a little slogan that says, nobody hires negative. like it's simple, but it's true. Like, And it's easy to get negative. Like, I mean, it's like, if I'm sure your clients and others, we all go through it. It's super, you can do the woe is me all day long. It's easy.
For sure.
And the day, it took me years to cut that portion of me out, and basically not, like, in my current role, like, it's probably one of the best fits I've had in my career.
Right.
But also, like, I literally wrote out a list of rules.
Right.
Like, and of like things I won't do.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I've been following them, and I'm much more satisfied than I was in probably some other places.
You had mentioned before the broadcast to me that, and we're nearing the top of the hour, so I respect your time. But one of the things that I like to ask is how do you get through? What helps you get through difficult times? And you mentioned that there was several.
I have a 5F system.
Okay.
So it's family.
This is family friendly interview.
Yeah.
Like,
it's 5F. No swear words. First is family. You know, if your family's not strong, you got to work on your family. And so, like, I'm fortunate enough that I have a wife, parents, brother, sister-in-laws, daughter, dog, who are very supportive of me. And, you know, you feel like that comfort, that safety net. Second, I have friends and colleagues who, just like you, I don't talk to in 20 years, who, like, will upend their calendar or figure out how to get me in on a conversation within a quarter. And those relationships are so critical. And when things go bad, because a lot of times this isn't like the first time something's gone bad.
Right.
And having someone who's out of your kind of day-to-day life, who you can kind of talk to and think things through, is real valuable. The others are fit. So it's kind of a double. One is the kind of fit to the business and fit to the circumstance, and also my fitness. So, like, so, like, I walk about 12,000 steps every day. It is incredible if you're not working out as you should be, because it's like, it's incredibly important to your mental health. It kicks off a lot of different things. It's also a great way, like, we get stressed, we get nervous, we do all these things. Human beings are not designed to sit on a couch.
Right.
We're designed to do other things. So doing that is important. And the last two are future. So, like, one of the things my wife and I, when we first got married, we both were like, we always had a trip set up 6 weeks in advance. We always had something to look forward to.
Right.
But when times are rough, trying to imagine, whether it's a work thing or a personal thing, what's that future place? Where are you going to get to? Like, like, bad stuff happens. No business is perfect. But, you know, how do you jump through that hoop of, okay, this isn't going to last forever? Like, that was the beauty of consulting. Like, if you didn't like your project, you were going to be finished with it pretty soon.
Yeah.
Relative to some other things. Business, in many ways, corporate life is similar to that. Like, I have another mentee who, she's jumped a couple jobs now, and now she's in a new company. The company's a great fit. Her leader is not. And she was like, I wish I could work with you again. You know, the usual lies and other things people say about me. And I said to her, well, is the fit bad? She said, no, the company's awesome. I said, okay, well, then in your future state, it's a year and a half from now, you're just going to switch out of the leader. Because the company's growing and has so much opportunity. And as long as it's a good fit for you overall, you can survive that time. It's hard. It sucks. You complain. You have to. And the last thing is, make it fun. Like, I mean, like, I've been fortunate in my career and unfortunate in my career to, have to reduce human life to a spreadsheet, because that's some of what happens in healthcare. And but what I was always amazed and inspired by were the people who worked in our hospice unit, because I had no interest. Like, I'm a typical American, afraid of death, all the other things that American hang-ups on death. And they celebrated death like birth, and they made it fun. Like everybody coming into work to deal with incredibly sick people who have all sorts of personal tragedy, very, very emotionally wrenching kind of stuff. And I tell you, like, looking at my time in healthcare, I think they were probably the funnest team in our entire organization. And but because they made it fun, they didn't allow the full gravity of the situation not to make it enjoyable in some way or make it powerful. So like when you have hard times, learn from them, deal with them, but don't let the thing I also learned in my career is and this has been a lot of work for me, don't replay it all over and over again. Like you knew me at Deloitte, I did that. I'm sure you saw it. So I mean, when I would mess up and I wouldn't let it go. I'd want to I would like a time machine to go back in time to fix it. Can't do that. It's really hard to break it, but I learned to say, this is what I learned. This is what I'm going to do better next time. And then kind of almost forget.
Right.
And not allow my narrative to be around
regret.
Well, that, and also like, like most people, like you can do 95% of your life right, but you'll spend a lot of time on the 5% that's not that way.
Right.
And so like you have to like learn to balance it out a bit, and also like have a clear objective. Like for me, WP Engine is a great representation of an opportunity to kind of do something I've never done before. So hopefully help the company go public or grow to 1 million customers. Manage stuff that I don't always know and have to like get ask questions about, or like my boss was like, we were talking about pricing one day and he's like, and I talked to our CFO and I'm like, I don't know that much about pricing. And my COO was like, you know more about pricing than most people here know about pricing, Michael. Don't do that again. And it was like one of those moments of like, oh, your definition of expertise isn't the same as somebody else's. And that your ability to take the frustrations or the difficult times and turn them into strengths for yourself, and moments of rise above, like is also real important. And like, but don't let like, if you happen to be one of your clients who's been laid off or is going through a hard time, don't let that moment define you. One of my favorite questions to ask people always is, if I met you in 5 years, who would you be? And that to me is the question that most people who want to hire you and want to work with you are going to ask. Because the people that I want to work with are the ones that are like, well, in 5 years, I want to be managing a team and I want to have a family. They have the complete picture of what their balance should be. Again, it's like nobody hires negative. Focus on, if you got that future vision of it, that's really cool.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, I thank you for your time here. I wanted to end off very quickly with a couple of rapid fire. And you don't know what these are. So I'll quickly ask, and the first thing that comes to your mind, go ahead and answer, right? So what is your alter ego profession? If you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you do?
Professor.
Okay. And you make a very good one, by the way. That's interesting. That's very interesting. That's going back to working with younger folks. And I thought you were going to say like a kindergarten teacher. All right.
What's my retirement job?
What's one word that you love?
Innovation.
Okay. Yeah. I remember our time in innovation. What's one word that you hate?
Can't.
Why is that?
So my rule is, if you say can't in the company you're in more than like, if you start saying can't more than you say can, you shouldn't be at the company anymore.
Okay.
Because that means you're done. When you're saying something can't be done, you're not only negating the value you're providing as an employee, you're negating your belief in the organization.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like what Dell pulled off during COVID, the company broke like literally every rule to help support its customers. I mean, like I was there, like we did things that are not necessarily great for the long-term health of our business and not great for like buying power cables from competitors so that we could make sure my laptops could charge in country.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
We didn't have time today to talk about your time at Dell too, so I'll have you back. Talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah. And so, but like, I think but those were all can't statements. We can't do this. This is our policy. We can't. Okay. I got hospital systems overflowing right now. Yes, we can. And so to me, like, that's the word I don't like. I hate the word
Right.
can't.
Gotcha. And what's your life motto? Do you have a life motto that you go back to? Maybe the 5 Fs? Is that what it is?
Firechat is some of it. I actually have been fortunate enough to work with an executive coach. And so she had me, as she worked with me on my self-confidence and other things, she had me create an image. And so my image is I am the captain. And I'm a giant Star Trek nerd. And I grew up with the original series. So although most people think I'm Spock, I aspire to be Kirk.
Okay.
And you know, there are words that flow from that. So like when I start seeing the bad habits or the things I don't do well, I take out this one piece of paper and it lists out like, what am I going to be, what are the behaviors I should be manifesting?
Mm-hmm.
Not the, and it's like literally it's a PowerPoint slide. It's printed out. I have somewhere in my office. It says, I am the captain. And it has like these 5 behaviors and exactly what I'm not supposed to do and what the things I'm supposed to do are.
Right.
And that's probably my motto. Like
Gotcha.
I chose, I was not born to be a leader. Like, I don't think I have that inherently in me. Like it's not genetic in the sense that like my dad was a CFO, et cetera, like super talented person. But I wouldn't have like, if you had seen me like when I first came out of school, I wouldn't have like picked me out of the room and said, yeah, like we're going to give him like 40, 50 people to manage and lead huge change in organizations and like
right.
I don't think that was who I was then. And I think I made that choice.
Yeah.
And
So
so
now it's I am the captain. Yeah.
Yeah. So but let's also be clear. No admiral. So like I'm also somebody who I've also learned that I don't want to be a CEO.
You know, I'm a captain means that you're going to go down with the ship too, and that's what you are. Last one here. So a COVID habit or hobby that you've developed.
Oh wow. Pickleball.
What?
Pickleball. It's the fastest growing sport. It's fastest growing sport in the world.
Is that the one where you bounce the ball off of a trampoline in the middle?
No, pickleball is you basically take a tennis court and cut it in half.
Okay.
You get a plastic ball and you have a different type of paddle, and it's like tennis but faster. And it's kind of the mixture of racquetball and whatever. My wife and I have started playing, and it's also one of the other things that as you get older and you start thinking about what you're going to do in your 60s and 70s and 80s, unfortunately, my body is not a 20-year-old's body as much as I imagine it to be. And so like we've been looking for something that we could do together.
Yeah.
That would be fun and social and safe. And it's nice because you don't ever touch the other human beings. You're far enough away that you can do something, you're none of the COVID things, but you get to go outside, you get to hit it. And like, I don't know. It's fun. Like, and you have to,
gotcha.
and it's mainly a double sport.
Gotcha.
And so like you have to do it with somebody else.
Right. Gotcha. All right, Mike, I'm going to have to let you go, but thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been great catching up, and all the best at your time where you are now. And we'll catch up again really soon, I'm sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Cheers.
All the best, dude. And don't move. Don't go. I'm just going to put you on backstage. Okay. All right. Well, there you go, guys. That was an amazing kind of catch up. You kind of peered into sort of a coffee talk that Mike and I had together. And as you can see, he's full of, you can see sort of the journey progression with Mike. Feel free to reach out to him on LinkedIn or wherever it is. I'm sure he's more than happy to connect with you. And as with all my guests, I pick them because they're great people and they're smart, and they also have a lot of things to share. So anyway, have a good weekend, guys. For us in Canada, it is long weekend Thanksgiving. So Canadians, happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you guys next week.